From the center of the galaxy, this is ForceCenter, a show about Star Wars, pop culture, and the ultimate adventure, life itself. I'm Joseph Scrimshaw.
I'm Ken Knapsack. I literally almost forgot my line, and it's my name. I'm here.
Ken is here, and he knows his own name. You know who else knows their name? Jennifer. Jennifer Landa, but she is not here with us for this episode. Jennifer is going to be here for all of our Acolyte discussions, and we've already pre-recorded some of our Subjective Wars episodes. But Jennifer is going to be a little bit in and out of the episodes for the next several weeks because we've got her permission to share her life adventure that she is going back to school, studying lots of interesting things, and I think is going to have a lot of interesting insights on Star Wars, force development, all sorts of things. But we want to be always upfront and honest with our listeners, with our viewers, that Jen's probably not going to be around for the news shows for the next several weeks, as she has an adventure in the exciting land of academia. Ken, any thoughts on that?
We're very happy and proud of the big steps she's taken in her life and future career paths and all that kind of wonderful things. It's a brave decision and a good one. But the downside is a little less Jen for a little bit here on ForceCenter.
That is right. So we will struggle along, and we'll turn to all of the regular familiar things to keep us propped up. Like, hey, this. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. There's got to be a new device that we should add to that list. I don't know.
Gotta be.
We continue to recommend Path of Deceit by Justina Ireland and Tessa Gratton. I'm now about halfway through getting caught up on phase 1 of the High Republic, and I continue to think very highly of this particular book. I actually think it's a pretty fun one to just experience alone. I think it's got some great connections to some of the ideas that are happening in the Acolyte, and it bears repeating every once in a while. If you want to get a free audiobook, it really helps us financially. And hey, you get a free audiobook. So a pretty good deal all around. You can download your free audiobook today by going to audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. One more time, that's audibletrial.com/ForceCenter for your free audio book. That is it for Audible. So we go on to our asks. Ken, you want to grab the asks?
I do. I want to grab asks. Got to say that carefully, kids. Got to say that carefully. Hey, look, we are, without a doubt, it's no secret, we've been putting a lot of elbow grease in the YouTube world, which is weird because you and I have both been in the YouTube world for a very long time. Side note, someone on one of my other channels tried to give me some a comment of advice to build a channel. I was like, I'm currently head writer on a 4 million subscriber channel and producer 6 million subscriber channel. I get it. Thank you. I thank you. But ForceCenter over the last year or so, we fired up those cameras. We're building over there. And so we definitely want to grow. And we'd love for you to consider, if you're just passing through on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, do the notification bell, all those wonderful things. We are trying to get to 10,000 subs by the time the Acolyte wraps. We're getting close to 9,000, which was a goal before the show launched. We didn't get that. That's fine. You don't make a goal. You keep striving. You keep going for what's in the future. So can you help us get to 10,000 subs? Spread the word. Tell the folks. We see it a lot. And look, there's so many wonderful shows out there. I feel like a local news anchor. There's many choices in local news. Thanks for choosing us. However, if you see one of those threads on social media, are there any good Star Wars shows out there that aren't toxic? Hey, you're saying, hey, check out ForceCenter. Definitely helps, whether on the podcast side or the YouTube side. But we're trying to get to that 10,000 subs, and I believe we're going to do it.
I think we might be able to do it indeed. We have seen a lot of growth. We saw a lot of growth when we've been making the calls recently for more subscribers. And we saw a lot of growth off of our first review discussion episode about the Acolyte. And I know there are a lot of people out there who are maybe more on the YouTube side. That's where they get their Star Wars discussion, who are looking for something that is non-toxic and wants to go deep into the ideas. Acolyte's got a lot of juicy ideas, and there are a lot of great channels that cover it. But if you have somebody who's like, can I hear people talking about the characters, the motivations, the whys, send them our way and see if they like what we do. All right, move on from our asks to our adventures. Ken, did you have any Star Wars or life adventures this week?
I had some Star Wars adjacent adventures, I would say, because it's in the same world and the same company. I finally got a chance to sit down and watch the Idea Man, Jim Henson doc by Ron Howard and his team on Disney Plus. And that led me to watch the Muppet movie again for the first time in years. Muppet kid myself, like I think so many of us, especially from our generation. It was hard not to be. Whether it was Sesame Street, The Muppet Show, The Muppet Movies, Muppet Babies, a little bit later on, it's all there. But it was great, and it was great to, I kind of forgot that George Lucas was an executive producer on Labyrinth. There's a shot of him in there in the doc. It's a really good doc. It's, it's an hour 47, and Jim Henson's life probably needs 9 hours and 47 minutes. Totally get that. It is very sweet. It got me. I was crying at the end. So yeah, there's other ways to maybe dig a little deeper into the man's life or the career. Like they didn't even touch the Great Muppet Caper, so I would have loved at least. They didn't even touch it. So. They passed through a lot of that stuff, so I totally get that criticism of the doc, but it is very sweet. It's very inspirational, especially Joseph, you trying to make sure your true north as an artist points towards filmmaking right now. Like Henson just having this kind of wanderlust with ideas. Like I did the Muppet Show for 5 years. I want to do something else. Made some movies. I want to make Dark Crystal. I really respect that, and I think there's stuff to pull out of it for creatives and fans alike. So sweet, got me to cry. And then I was like, you know what? I haven't watched the Muppet movie in years. And I sat down and watched that over the course of the weekend while I was doing some work, and realized how much that movie formed some of my, much like the Muppet Show, formed some of my creativity and comedy, right? Some of my influences. Dr. Teeth pulling out the script and going, well, we found you because we read the script. I think I put that in many high school videos without realizing I was putting meta kind of comedy and stuff into it. Loved it. Heartwarming. So that's great there. And then the other thing I'll throw in quickly, like they did release some footage for the Indiana Jones game that's going to come out, and it's Xbox only.
What?
So I'm out. Like I have a PS5. I've made my choice years ago. So until this becomes available for other platforms, I'll just have to be jealous. I was unsure of what to expect of this kind of game. Same with Star Wars Outlaws, where I'm like, it all looks good, but how's it actually going to feel? The clip, it was about 5 minutes, and I enjoyed it. Absolutely enjoyed it. It made me maybe not grumpy, but just jealous that I won't get to experience it right away. But it was really good. Might be an Indiana Jones game that we've been waiting for.
Yeah, I made a Kermit face to that. That was great at swallowing his lips, old Kermit. I didn't know that it was going to be Xbox exclusive. I haven't been doing a lot of gaming, but man, I really enjoyed the summer of Indiana Jones last year, and still got a lot of action figures sitting out. And man, it sounds great to be Indiana Jones. I love the way the video game world has evolved, and it has a lot of times you are playing, characters that are unique to the video games. But I think I still have that old school desire to be like, but I want to be Indiana Jones. I want to be James Bond, that kind of thing. So, I will.
Power of GoldenEye. You felt like you were taking that little laser watch and you working with it.
You are James Bond. You are hitting a random button to reset that server. Man, good stuff. I went down a memory lane with a friend about GoldenEye the other day. I did that a good week of lots of busy stuff and lots of fun stuff, but lots of stressful stuff. But I had a really great pop culture weekend. I went to see not Star Wars connected. I'm sure like he's some Kevin Bacon level of connected to Star Wars, but the great actor Russ Tamblyn, many people will know from West Side Story, one of the main roles. He's also in a great horror film called The Haunting from, I believe, in 1960. I became aware of him because of his role of Dr. Jacoby on Twin Peaks, and then playing a version of the character in the third season of Twin Peaks. But he's 89, and he's one of the sort of like last living legends who worked in the studio system, right? And he recently wrote a book, and he was doing a signing and a talk at the Hollywood Heritage Museum, which is this little museum right across from the Hollywood Bowl, which is in the barn that Lansky and DeMille and some of the early filmmakers were like, yep, we built a barn to make movies in. It's just steeped in history, and just, oh man, he was great. A real life affirming. He's like 89 and sharp and full of fun stories, and
Mm.
yeah, so that was great. And then more directly Star Wars related. On Saturday night, I've been involved in this short horror film group. That's an accountability group where you sign up to make a short film in 2 months, and if you don't do it, you owe the group $100. And then everybody gets together and it's a private screening, and it gets held at a local toy store. So screening went really well. That was really wonderful. But then I was like, I should really talk to other filmmakers about their films. And I did, but I kept glancing over to the Star Wars aisle. They refreshed the Star Wars aisle, and they got a bunch of those 30th anniversary figures, which are so good. So not only did my film play well, but I almost bought Torture Rack Han Solo. So good.
I know the toy store well. It's a local to me. I do that comedy show, as you've done, with Jeff May in there. And every time I'm there doing that comedy show, I'm spending more time in the back going, I don't need any of these figures.
I don't need, but I want. I'm going back to that Torture Rack Han Solo. I'm probably going to make another film just as an excuse to go back and
just do that.
Buy Torture Rack Han Solo. Anyway, those are some Star Wars and life and pop culture adventures. We are going to dive into the news. This is one of our breaking news from a long time ago episodes. We got some great stories about the cold hard numbers behind Acolyte, writers for Andor. Hey, a toy thing. And we also have a great question from one of our patrons on Patreon, getting into the difference between Star Wars television and movies and how they make us feel. A lot to dive into, so let's get started with The Acolyte scoring a solid debut, Ken. From Disney's internal tracking, The Acolyte had a great first day of viewership. They're generally positive critical reviews, and not surprisingly, there are some harsh review bombing going on Rotten Tomatoes. So I think the numbers are something to turn to assess the actual level of audience engagement. Here's a couple quotes from a couple different sources. This comes to us from that old trade paper Variety that says, The Acolyte, Disney Plus' newest Star Wars series, reached 4.8 million views in its first day of availability. This marks the streamer's biggest series premiere of 2024, according to Disney. An exact first-day viewership total isn't available for Ahsoka, the most recent Star Wars series, though Disney did report that it took 5 days to reach 14 million views. That comes out to an average of 2.8 million viewers per day, 2 million below the launch of Acolyte. Note, a view is calculated by dividing the number of hours each title is watched by its runtime. So I think it's worth looking at how these numbers are actually assessed. So there's some crunchy details here. Got one other quote from Star Wars Newsnet, and then we can dive in. Star Wars Newsnet says it's also worth considering how Disney Plus defines a view differs a bit from some contemporary streamers who define a view as if you watched a select amount of minutes of a show or movie in one sitting, accounting for a view. Disney goes for something more proportional. Watching half of an episode equals half of a view, while watching the same episode all the way through 3 separate times counts as 3 separate views. So it's a bit difficult to pin down just how many people actually tuned in for the 2-episode premiere of The Acolyte. I watched each of those episodes 3 times, so all the way through 3 times. So I guess I'm 6 of those 4.8 million. Feels good to be seen. Yeah.
Yeah. We got a total of 12 here for them. Look at us.
12, yeah. So it is good to be mindful of, what does it, that it's a great number. It's the biggest in 2024, wonderful, but what does it really mean is kind of wild in the streaming era. So Ken, here's my big question. How important do you think these numbers are to the success of the show, to a second season?
To that last part of the question is the key. I think this is very important. I think however we get to the numbers, and it's confusing. I'm making, not Kermit faces, maybe Gonzo faces over here. I don't know. Like, we could have that discussion about what's a view. I think sometimes they use it to make sure the residuals are suppressed. Sometimes I just think it's complicated. I don't know. I still can't explain the Electoral College to you, but here we are in 2024. But to trumpet these kind of numbers, it's a good thing. And in a world where shareholders see only that kind of value, and if views and watch time are more important than subscriptions right now, I don't know where they are on that. Then I'm going to take this as a win. I'm going to take it, and it was a fun headline to see go around.
Yeah, no, I think it's very important. I'm very excited
Mm,
about it. I think, I continue to believe that art is subjective. You can have a critical mass of opinion where you ask 10 people and 8 of them consistently don't like it. You have an answer that the art didn't land with a lot of people, but that might still be that 2 people loved it. Art is subjective. So I think for the business side of show business, you got to turn to some metric. And the metrics are all over the map right now, but I'm
yeah.
happy to see them at all. Pre-streaming and early in the streaming world, maybe the metrics were ratings, awards prestige, where networks would just come out and go like, "Hey, nobody's watching 30 Rock, but it won all the awards, and now we're not canceling 30 Rock," and then it grows to
Yes.
popularity, right?
Yes.
That Mad Men started real low, real slow, won a bunch of awards, and it exploded, right? So
Hmm.
we used to know, like, hey, how much money is Clorox giving ABC?
Right.
That's the metric, right? How many
Yeah.
people are watching according to Nielsen? Is it winning awards? You got into the streaming era, and it was subscribers, but now there's an
Hmm.
honesty of like, this is not a growth forever.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
You can't get the twinkle in somebody's eye to subscribe
Yeah.
to Disney Plus.
Yeah.
There are only so many humans on the planet, and
Yeah.
I've been frustrated because how does the companies aren't giving a way for the viewers to advocate for a show,
Right.
because in the streaming world, like, what's the metric? Like, I want to grab some of these giant companies by the lapels and shake them and go, what do you want? What is a
Yeah.
success to you? um if
Yes.
it's not subscriptions and it's not advertising dollars, then how do we as an audience like find a way to
Mm.
vote for things that we love?
Mm.
Especially when Netflix was like killing everything in 2 or 3 seasons just to not keep paying people.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to see this, even though the different streamers have different metrics. I'm just happy to kind of get back to a world of public metrics. So
Yeah.
there's a little bit of a conversation between the business and the consumer.
Yeah. Yeah, no, like I said, it is not a bad headline, right? And it's the numbers these days. It's just interesting. This highlights what kind of world we're in. I know famously the MASH finale had like 106 million viewers.
Hmm.
We're not in that time again. We'll never get to
Hmm.
that because we just have too many choices.
Hmm.
MASH was one of 3 choices that night at that time. It's a
Hmm.
great show, and my family was there watching it too. But
Indeed.
I hate when that gets brought up. Well, back in the day, well, yeah, because back in the day, Will had one thing to watch. Now we don't. We're competing for the attention of everyone, and that includes TikTok and social media platforms of all kind. So this is a good number, and a good number in the face of a lot of the words out there about the show that would try to convince you it wasn't going to do good. Yeah, good stuff. But I also agree with you too on the changing goalposts of the metrics and the companies. Just what is
Yeah.
it? Bigger conversation.
Yeah. And I think with Star Wars, there's also the like, if the initial views are good, if the initial engagement is good, if it grows, I think that has value for something like Star Wars, in terms of like, Star Wars is always going to have merchandise attached to it, all these
Mm-hmm.
existing licenses. So that speaks to, if
Mm-hmm.
there's engagement with these characters, then great. We can put out next summer. There can be a a Yord bathing suit. Great. Whatever you want to
A Yord
merchandise.
suit?
A Yord suit, whatever you want to merchandise. And also now that that Disney Plus is open to physical disc sales, and
Mm-hmm.
apparently having enough success that they've done a couple of rounds of them, then there's
Mm-hmm.
also say a way to say like, okay, this is valuable to continue.
Yeah.
And as you hinted at, I'll also just say, this show has come up for a lot of criticism from people who I don't think the criticism is about the show. It's just
Mm-hmm.
anger about the identity of the creators and the
Mm-hmm.
cast. So I think it's extra important to cut through that noise, which can feel all consuming, and
Mm-hmm.
go, is that a vocal minority?
Mm-hmm.
And let's find the truth of that with numbers is a good thing.
Yeah, and the idea that I don't know about you, but I had a lot of folks in my life who are diehard Star Wars fans, but maybe haven't enjoyed the last couple shows, or
Mm-hmm.
where they're in a different spot, or casuals, or people like, hey, I gave it. I've had a lot of texts from a lot of people who are really in on this show, And that has not been the case for the last couple of years, which is
Mm-hmm.
not saying anything about those shows, just saying something about what's going on right now.
Yeah, no, I saw a lot of great social media conversations where I think people have, whether it's true or not about Marvel, about Star Wars, it kind of doesn't matter if it's true because the audience perception is you need to know too much to watch these shows. So even if I disagree with that in instances, I think that has so pervaded culture. I saw a bunch of social media discussions of like, I thought you didn't need to know anything, but then I heard this is from books because of the High Republic thing. So I saw a lot of people weighed in like, no, you can just dive in. So I think as that message gets out there, I'm sure that will be beneficial to the numbers of the Acolyte as well. So setting the kind of the business aside, do these numbers matter to you as a fan? How do you reconcile what you care about in terms of the show's success versus, getting into business debates about it?
Generally, I think I don't pay attention to it too much. I think I did this time around, not only because we're discussing it here, but because, again, I saw that headline floating around and was like, yeah, it was a fist bump for me. But I think I don't get too caught up into it because I think I don't have the numbers in front of us. That's also part of the discussion that we were talking about in the business side. But like Andor didn't have the views that the other shows had. That doesn't mean Andor's quality is less. It just meant it wasn't reaching a wider Star Wars audience. That's kind of the case. I brought in the MASH numbers, but it's like I've seen some like Succession had the numbers are almost not, I want to say laughable because that's disrespectful, but they're like so small. It's amazing that it has that it has the reputation it has.
Yeah, and the cultural presence of at least online. Yeah.
And it's just so it's a give and take for me. If you put too much behind the numbers on one show, then you're gonna be undercut on another show. Same metric will cut your argument down. But again, as I said, what a fun headline, and a fist pump for me, and a little bit of like in your face haters, like a little bit of that energy for me over it.
Right, because there is, as we always discuss, hey, if you're a Star Wars fan and you watch this and it just didn't engage you, that's fine. We're not talking about people who truly, sincerely say, not my Star Wars, I'll wait around for the next Star Wars. We're talking about people who had decided ahead of time to not like it for things that don't have anything to do with the actual show. Significant distinction there for me. But it is a fist bump for me. I've enjoyed what I've seen. I certainly have some little quibbles, but for the most part, I really, really enjoyed this. And more than anything, like the Acolyte is so what a lot of audience has been clamoring for: a different era, new characters, a place to jump in, Star Wars experimenting with different genres. This is this weird Hitchcockian mystery of identity, of like true questions of identity, sinking into this deep, Hitchcockian, like North by Northwest, Vertigo, like questioning your own identity. Did I do that? Am I who I think I am? All these things. It's got this great specific genre flavor, really pulling in the martial arts elements that have always been there in Star Wars and making a big meal of them. It's so what people have been clamoring for. Great place to jump on. Away from the Skywalker saga. New characters that you don't know what's going to happen to them. Genre experimentation that I want the world to work. I want it to be that when people clamor for something and you give it to them, they're like, yay, thank you. Yeah. So I want people to like Acolyte from that perspective.
Yes.
Yeah. I think I'm also fist pumping for myself as a fan because I would really, from what I've seen so far, just these first 2 episodes, I would like another season. Knowing that there is a desire for another season, I would really like some of these television shows to not, be a one shot like Kenobi or, unfortunately, I think what Boba Fett is going to turn out to be, but something that goes on for several seasons and grows and feels like a television show, not a movie broken up into smaller parts.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And I'm happy to have Mandalorian go for as long as it did, 3. And I know there could be a season 4, but we're turning towards movie. But I would love like a, what Clone Wars was, but on the live action side. Give me season 6 of Acolyte.
Yeah, absolutely. We might talk about that a little bit later. So we shall move on from those numbers to some Andor season 2 writer news. So there is a WGA report that some Star Wars sleuths noted the posting of that revealed the writing credits for the second season of Andor, and I think kind of confirmation of some structure stuff. This is a breakdown from the website Star Wars Newsnet. It says the first, second, and third episodes of Andor Season 2 will be written by series showrunner Tony Gilroy, who wrote the opening and closing arcs of Season 1 and wrote additional material for Rogue One before that. The fourth, fifth, and sixth episodes will be written by Beau Willimon, who wrote the Narkina 5 arc of the Season 1 and is co-writing the Star Wars movie set in the Dawn of the Jedi era with James Mangold. The seventh, eighth, and ninth episodes will be written by Dan Gilroy, who wrote the Aldhani arc of Season 1 and co-wrote The Bourne Legacy in Kong, Skull Island. The 10th, 11th, and 12th episodes will be written by Tom Bissell, writer of multiple games in the Gears of War series and the author of The Disaster Artist, which is a behind-the-scenes book about the making of the notorious film The Room. Notably, as of this time, no Stephen Schiff, who wrote the one non-arc episode of Season 1, Episode 7 announcement, and I believe was involved in the actual genesis of Andor as a concept before it became a slightly different show. So, Ken, how do you feel about this list of returning writers?
I like it a lot. I like it a lot. I don't have grand opinions on all of them, other than enjoyed what they did last season, even here and there. I think I'm looking at you, Dan Gilroy, for some of the Aldhani stuff, the endings that I was a little more grumpy of. But he's a great writer and fascinated by this. Beau Willimon working on the Mangold film too is exciting too. For what it can bring, and it's a long way. This is still a long way off for me, but I think what this show's doing, 2 seasons to go through a lot of time, and now the second season to go through even more time. I think these, it's almost 3 seasons in one, 4 seasons in one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited about that.
Yeah, that really, really big, jumps in time are going to make these arcs even more distinct, I think. Mm-hmm. I feel a little bad for Stephen Schiff, partially because Episode 7 was one of my very favorites of Andor Season 1. That's Mon Mothma's dinner party. I learned from Palpatine to show them the rock in your hand so you don't see the knife in their back. Mm-hmm. The whole smile business with Tay. The one of the parts of Andor that sits with me the most is, and I know all this stuff is writer's room stuff, but it's Stephen Schiff who executed it. But Cassian's plea to his mom, I just want to go somewhere warm and easy, and all the Niamos business. That's all from this. So that episode is, the Narkina 5 One Way Out is amazing, all that stuff. But that one episode might have some of my favorite stuff in Andor. And reading the tea leaves, I think Stephen Schiff was involved in the initial pitch, and then Tony Gilroy came in. So I also just have a little bit of down in the trenches empathy for a writer who maybe didn't stay attached to. Just be very
some
honest.
Reality, sir.
Yeah. How do you feel about Tom Bissell? I looked up. Fascinating. Mostly a video game writer and a critic. Unless I missed it, I don't think has any traditional screenwriting credits. And again, it's a writer room stuff, but he's the one executing it. How do you feel about that? About a writer with a real different experience and resume tackling the finale of this epic show?
I like it. The name that comes to mind is Gary Whitta with co-writing Rogue One, who's definitely had screenwriting credits before that, but had made kind of was a game critic writer type of guy, still kind of is, and then took that leap over there with the Denzel Washington film, The Rogue One. So, and I like that. I think you and I and so many people working in and around this industry, like, it's too easy to get pigeonholed. It's too easy to, I didn't start out like this, but now I'm doing this, and now people only see me as this. So at a high level, if they put that kind of trust in him, and again, he's done a lot, and I want to make, before anyone jumps on us in comments, writing video games is not easy, and its own wonderful artistic art form. I want to be clear, 'cause big fan of that. I still call Red Dead Redemption 2 my favorite movie of all time. Like, it's great, and so it makes a lot of sense. And the author of The Disaster Artist, so he's definitely studied how to put these things together, or how not to.
How things can go wrong. Yeah, no, I mean, I think I think that I never want to have any disrespect for somebody who really knows their craft and knows everything about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think that we as a society box one another in way too much. Like the
Yeah.
industry in Hollywood certainly does that. I remember when I first came out here and people were like, what do you want to do? Like, I want to write. Well, movies or television? I don't know, maybe television. Well, what kind of television? Probably comedic. Well, single camera, multi-camera, like
Yeah.
streaming or like
It's a drop down menu.
people want to and one of the things I have enjoyed about my weird career is a lot of times if you're creative, those skills are transferable. You know,
Mm-hmm.
if you're a
Mm-hmm.
painter, you're not necessarily going to be a great writer, but there's a lot just from sitting there and thinking about a painting that you can
Yeah.
transfer over to writing. So I'm never going to
Yeah.
be somebody who's like a video game writer can't write an episode of television. I think I, in
Yeah.
fact, would love to see more of this where people are,
Yeah.
experimenting between different genres because a lot of creative skills are transferable.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a different voice and different view on how to put things together.
Yeah,
And
and
it's fascinating.
how far we've come from the years of rage and debate every time Roger Ebert would say video games aren't art, they can't be, period, they're not. How far have we come?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So this is also a confirmation, I think, of the structure of season 2 in terms of the number of arcs. I think this was out here before.
Mm-hmm.
We
Mm-hmm.
know it's going to jump around in time and allegedly bring us up right to the beginning of Rogue One. But how are you feeling to see this confirmed of these arcs?
I'm really excited. I know I tipped my hand a little earlier, but I'm really excited, and I wish we had 5 seasons of this show. I would have to be honest with that. But I liked what Gilroy and Diego Luna had said. Like, yeah, we kind of thought about this will be enough, but it's going to be it's going to leave room too for storytelling. You have a character like Mothma. There's a lot of different places she shows up, without a doubt. We know that, but also a lot more storytelling I'd want to get to. So if there's a Mothma spinoff and we can do it between a year between whatever some of these arcs are, I'm excited about that kind of stuff. And the thing when they came out ahead of it and said we're only doing 2 seasons. And now we get a confirmation of what they're doing with the arcs. They know what they want to do with the stories, and I'm excited to see it finish up right up to the last second of the walking into Rogue One or whatever it is.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm very excited about the time jumps because that's just going to be something different, and I want to see different things in Star Wars to keep that variety at the buffet. So yeah, a clear arc for this character, but jumping from a major incident to major incident that moves him into position for Rogue One, moves the galaxy into position, potentially moves Mothma into position for her big episode in Rebels, where she, goes on the run and makes the speech to the galaxy, kind of declaring this rebellion is open for business. Come join us. That's really exciting to think about that could be a big part of this as well. So I'm really excited about covering the time. I really thought highly of the first season of Andor. Won't belabor it anymore, but I did feel like we were lucky to have screeners, so we watched the first arc. We had those first 3 episodes, right?
Right.
And I didn't even think about it. I just binged them. I watched all 3 back to back, and then when the other arcs played out, they felt a little. In every individual scene, just about every individual line is like, that's phenomenal. The overall pacing, it felt like we're building to a thing happening. And so I kind of just hope that there's a little bit more paciness to the plot within each arc. So, so a 3 arc structure should, they could play like mini movies.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
They might release them as mini movies. They might say, screw it. We're going to get through Andor season 2 in 4 weeks. We're going to drop each arc as a 3-episode arc. And then they are kind of functionally mini movies. They're not even mini movies. They're long movies, 3-hour movies.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it.
I don't think I want that, but
I don't think I want that, but I could get that. I could understand it.
Because then yeah. I mean, I think that was the thing for me. I think in the Aldani arc and the Narkina 5 arc, they were great, but the second episodes of both of them are the ones where I felt like we're turning up the heat a little bit, but I'm wanting to get a little farther in the actual plot.
For a show that I love, that I think is just spectacular and made so well. Those 2 episodes you're talking about, the middle arcs of those ones, I had I have to be honest, they ended and I went, come on, both times, both
Yeah.
times.
Yeah, so I'm fascinated to see. Mind is totally open. I'm very excited for season 2 of Andor. Any other thoughts on that before we take a quick break?
Here's what it reminds me of. Oh yeah, I need to go back and revisit that show again because there's the Star Wars buffet is just delicious and wonderful, and so many choices in front of you that I'm like, oh yeah, I got to go back to that one.
Yeah, no, I got distracted this morning because I was like, I want to confirm that those scenes I'm remembering are in that episode 7, and I was like, oh no, I'm out of time because I just kept watching.
Yep, it's a great episode.
Andor is a really great, very specific flavor within Star Wars, and I'm looking forward to getting back to that flavor.
Yep.
All right, I'm going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back on the other side with a question and a toy, my favorite. Back in a moment. And we are back to continue our discussion of Star Wars breaking news. This has been rumored for a long time. There was supposed to be an announcement on May the 4th, but Hasbro pushed it back. But in big toy news, it's literally big toy news in that the toy is physically very large. Hasbro has their program where people basically pre-purchase a big dream project of a toy. And if enough people pledge, then the thing goes into production. That's their HasLab. The most recent HasLab project is a vintage collection, 3 3/4 scale playset of Chalmun's Cantina, the non-deluxe version with the one that doesn't have an extra wall. Its footprint is about 2.5 feet by 1.5 feet. This is a big old cantina. Gone are the days of a cardboard backdrop in a little bit of a plastic bar. This is a whole ass thing. The non-deluxe version costs $400. And now, as we record, is about halfway to the 8,000 required backers. It comes with a new Wu hair action figure sculpt. The Wu hair comes with plentiful and detailed chest hair. It also comes with the Tonica sisters, which people have been clamoring for years. And if they get more backers, it will unlock a Greedo action figure, a Nabroon Leeds action figure, and an Arleal Shoes action figure, which I just love because Arleal Shoes, if it was in trivia and somebody said Arleal Shoes, this name is either from Star Wars or King of the Hill. Which do you guess? I would guess King of the Hill. No, Star Wars. Arleal Shoes. Anybody who doesn't feel like Googling, it's basically the Lack Sivrik mask, but had some extra work done to it by Rick Baker. Anyway. You can Google Arleal Shoes yourself. So, Ken, you are off the collecting roller coaster at the moment. What's your reaction to just the existence of this deluxe cantina, and what does it say about the importance of this space in Star Wars lore?
I'll tell you, for audio listeners, I got a measuring tape out. I was just, and I'm at 1.5. It literally, this desk that I broadcast on, all the gear would have to go, and this is where it would fit. But I measured. I am, you're right. I am off the roller coaster, as you said, but there's just something about this. It just takes me back to my kid heart, loving Star Wars, and not getting all the figures you wanted, Tonica sisters and hair. Oh my God. And it also connects with the G.I. Joe aircraft carrier that I never got. That was 6 feet of plastic greatness, and you still have in your mind, you're like, well, I could still, if I maybe put in the garage, because at that toy store you and I were talking, they got one on display.
Yeah, like $3,000, right?
Yeah, so all right, all right, let's play the lottery. So no, I think this is great. I have not invested in the HasLab stuff before, and it's not even just about money. It's space and where I'm at as a Star Wars fan when it comes to collecting. But I don't know, you're never too far away from it, and I think it's a great set.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I'm gonna do it.
You're gonna do it?
I think so. It's such a hard decision, because I did get the Razor Crest, and as we've all joked about, I'm so excited about it. So enjoyed Mandalorian Season 2, and very quickly after I hit the purchase button, they blew it up. And that it doesn't make me not want it, but I didn't understand how huge it was. And then when it was in development, there's a great photo of Jon Favreau holding it like a proud papa of look what I have wrought. And Jon Favreau is a tall man with gifted with wide shoulders, and I saw how big it looked in his hands, and I was like, oh no, what have I done?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I've never been able to put it together because I don't have a space large enough to hold it.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had many conversations with myself. I'm like, well, I just can't do. I would have loved to do the Ghost. The Ghost looked amazing. I almost did the Ghost and then just gave the ship away so I could get the action figures
Yeah.
because I wanted those figures.
Yeah.
And I literally had conversations with myself when the Ghost was going. I was like, well, I can't do those unless maybe if they did the Cantina.
Mm.
I've never had a good Cantina playset,
Yep.
and it's not coming out until the fall of 2025. So it's like, can I change my life by the fall of 2025 to make room in my life for the Cantina? Can I do it?
Yeah.
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 Or is this just an investment in the future of like someday I will have a Star Wars playroom and that will be the center of it?
Is this like occasionally I'll buy a shirt in a smaller size to be like, I'm going to fit into that shirt. I'm fitting into it. And then
It's
I don't.
the opposite of that. Yeah. I'll have
Yeah.
a big enough house to fit
Yeah.
the Cantina.
Why did Joseph and Sarah move to Malibu? Why did they have they get rich? No, he got a Cantina set. He needed a house.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
with you.
But I think for me it's the and not everybody's loving this. It's not immediately it's at halfway, which is very impressive. It started
Okay.
on Friday, I believe. So it's
Oh, that's okay.
halfway over the weekend as we record here on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's gonna make it, but I saw lots of crusty comments of like it comes with 100 glasses. Like this is it comes with all sorts of seats and chairs. It's not just crowd your figures around the bar. You can spread out.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It's so capturing the space to the point of it's got this little alligator head that I'd never noticed in the canteen. I've seen other people go
Right.
like, never knew there was a alligator head decoration, but it's so detailed, it's so real. It captures the heart of the space. And that's what I wanted to ask you about too. Like, you're not getting this, but what about the Cantina is so, after all these decades, still central to the lore of Star Wars?
It's absolutely the genesis of so much, right? Every other bar or cantina or restaurant in Star Wars is compared to this, and I know for other folks, the Outlander Club might be the first kind of club you saw in Star Wars. Totally get it. I know this is original trilogy kid speaking here, but even then, I still think you hold it up to it, and when it shows back up, as as much as I initially, it's episode 5 of season 1 of Mandalorian, not my favorite, but just the fact that they were there is fun. And anytime you go back to Clone Wars, they went back there. I don't know. It feels like home, even though it wasn't inviting, and where you and I have both said we shared miles apart in different states growing up with different kind of views on life and experiences, and we both were so scared of Wu Hair that we didn't go to bars for a while or didn't know what to do in bars. Like the Cantina is powerful. I'm looking at it now, and you're right. Like I see the 100 drinking glasses, and that feels like comfort to me.
Yeah.
It feels like fun. Look at the
I want to
details
have
on
more
that.
fake toy glasses than I have real
Yeah.
glasses in real life, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who has 100 glasses in their cupboards?
Mm.
Yeah, I think there's something about it's all generational, but people have continued to love this space, and it has popped up in the Clone Wars and Mandalorian, and it goes on. And I think if you're an EU reader, that's your entry to Star Wars. The Tales of the Cantina is foundational for a generation of Star Wars fans. So it is spread across the saga. But I also just think going back to 77 and what George wanted to do, fighting for those reshoots like he did to get more weird aliens in there, to get the modal nodes in there. It's just kind of the heart of Star Wars in some ways. Of Lucas wanted to have this, like, this is like nothing you've ever seen before. Bonkers galaxy far, far away that's still somehow familiar. And this sort of grimy cantina like you've seen in classic black and white films, but it's filled with just bonkers looking aliens. The music being, it is of our world, but also entirely unique. the first lightsaber in action scene in Star Wars for release chronology. It really captured the Western meets weird pulp fantasy. Like, actual pulp magazines would be like, you can get a Western over here, or you can get a weird googly-eyed monster rising from the swamp, in frightening a librarian. But this is really like, shrunk, they are together. That's a part of the magic of Star Wars. There's so much about the Cantina that brings all of these elements of Star Wars, where it's using different recognizable things and making something entirely its own out of it. And I feel like the Cantina is the heart of that in the first Star Wars film.
Really is. It's big for a reason. Chalmun's Spaceport Cantina.
Yep.
By the way, how much to support to get a Chalmun? We've never seen Chalmun in canon, right?
Oh yeah, no, yeah, really. He is. Everybody's joking. Everybody's going to get their own spin-off movie. Chalmun the movie coming soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Look, and I'll say this isn't complaint. This is a chance to do some stretch goals. You get yourself a B. Arthur. I mean,
B. Arthur. I was really hoping one of the stretch goals would be Krellman, and you could pour the beer in his head, the liquor in his head. Great. Is there any HasLab project that would break you? Where if you had the space and the money, that you'd go, yeah, I got to do that.
Two. One's probably more realistic, and that would be Bright Tree Village. 3 3/4 Bright Tree Village set. I'd put that in my backyard. I think it wouldn't last with weather, but I think I'd put it out there. And then again, 3 3/4. It's doable, but it would be a bit. But like the pod race starting gates.
Oh wow! With a bunch of pods.
Yeah, a bunch of pods. Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be a lot, and the space would be ridiculous. I would have to move too. But something like that. But Bright Tree Village is realistic. Get Han on a spit.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that would be great. Yeah. Stretch goal of Nisa. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
They got the action figure right now. Anyway. Yeah. Oh man, that'd be great. That'd be absolutely great. I've gone on about this before, so I'll keep it short. But the Sith Arena on Exegol from Rise of Skywalker.
Yes.
I think I just got to wait 10 to 15 more years for when the sequel kids rise up and go, hey, all you ancient grumpy prequel fans.
Yep.
Stop harshing we grew up with the sequel. We're sequel kids. Get out of here, you old grumps. Where's our Rise of Skywalker action figures? It's going to happen in 10 to 15 years, and I can wait that out.
I mean, yes, because where we are collected, I think that's a good time scale. But like, there's also like, so you and I will have to be like 90, 40, 50 years after Rise of Skywalker. Like, we're here, we are ForceCenter, year 60 of ForceCenter, and we're going to back the HasLab Exegol set. It's virtual. It builds right in front of you. Yeah.
Yeah, I am gonna cling until an Exegol playset.
You download it into your mind, and then it creates it in front of you. The plastic shoots out of your ear. I don't know.
I'll be so old I won't even be able to see. I'll be like, adopted grandchildren. Describe it to me. What's it like? Yeah, we'll see. All right. We are going to move on to a great essay question from a patron on Patreon. This comes to us from Andrew McNabb, and as we always say, we encourage patrons to let us know where you're coming from, because we love diving into the subjective and talking about our own personal experiences and perspectives and how they shape our views. So Andrew gave us a nice essay with a question. You ready for this, Ken?
I am.
Andrew says, hello, hope you're all happy and healthy. I guess this is a question, but it's just as much a case of me having to talk some things out and hear other views. Like a pub chat, just with less nerves about being served at the bar because I'm too polite and too lean. There you go, that woo-hair fear that haunts us all. Andrew says, I was wondering how or if your heart sees the difference between Star Wars on television and Star Wars on the big screen. I say heart because I'm not talking about stuff like canon or budget or run times. It's more about that feeling. Do you feel any different about Star Wars television and Star Wars movies, and do you consciously try to reconcile this? My own personal headline is that I have thoroughly enjoyed every single piece of Star Wars television. Some shows, moments, beats, arcs more than others, naturally, but I like it all. Some of it has given me some of my highest highs as a Star Wars fan, and when you add it all up, I spent way more hours in the TV verse than anywhere else. Grogu is probably the Funko Pop I've Funko Popped the most. I have two separate Obi-Wan, Raiden, and Eope figures on a dedicated Kenobi shelving display with multiple levels and sections. Star Wars animation has also given my young son a wonderful entry point into the galaxy, which has been very special. But even my favorite episodes that are self-contained, episodes that wrap things up, they all still feel like my plate has been emptied before I've finished eating. I'm still hungry. There's still a rumbly in my tumbly. A lingering feeling that I'm not 100% satisfied. I never feel like I've journeyed enough. I feel like my head and heart has been trained to sit down with a Star Wars story, be blown up, down, left, and right, and then having everything swell to a conclusion, even the movies with cliffhangers. It's made me pine even more for a return to the big screen, especially after going to see The Phantom Menace again. I am so grateful we have Star Wars on television, and I hope it goes on forever, or at least till the day after I pass on. Then it can stop. I just wonder if it will ever provide me with the same tingles that the movies do. Is the hunger simply a case of 40 minutes versus 2 hours, or 50 years of movies versus 5 of live-action television? And will I ever get served at this bar? Thanks to you all, Andrew. All right. Excited to dive into this, Ken. I know you have some feelings because you've talked about pining for the cinematic return, but how do you wrestle with this? How do you make peace with the difference between the Star Wars movies and the Star Wars television?
Yeah, and I like that Andrew is kind of he's taken away some of the talking points of budgets and realities and this and that. And I think you can't overlook pandemic affecting Kenobi comes to mind more than anything. But I know what he's talking about. I think I don't feel I have to reconcile it. I just have to understand and accept the two forms, but I get the tingles. I still get those moments. Kenobi had some of those moments, some of the confrontation. You were talking about Andor. Never more than 12 is one of my favorite Star Wars moments. With
it's phenomenal.
It's with Circus there, and that no matter what I can watch on my phone and I still get that. So they are there. I just think there's a little bit of conditioning. There's a little bit of I go back to even George, like, hey, yeah, we're going to do a live action TV show. And and I don't have the quotes in front of me, but there's some of like, I just, if it's not going to look good, I don't want to do it type of thing. And I think we've gotten a lot of Star Wars that looks good, but sometimes it doesn't. And I do think some of that's budget. So I'm not bringing that into the conversation. But I think even in Acolyte, I had a couple moments with ships that I think were good. They're fine. But it felt like TV to me. It doesn't take my enjoyment down. But it does feel, I don't know. It's like it's a little different in your mouth when you're biting into something you love. So I just have to accept it. And there was a moment. I'm waiting for this in Star Wars TV, and I want to be clear again. I've enjoyed everything. I have defended Book of Boba Fett to the point where I think I've lost friends over it. Okay, but there was a moment I had in a Game of Thrones season 8. The Long Night episode, the Battle of Winterfell. Yep, there's so many things to talk about it, blah, blah, blah. Don't care. There's a moment at the beginning of the battle where Jorah Mormont and Ghost are leading the Dothraki against the Night King's army, and there's trebuchets have launched flaming rocks over their head. And I remember literally tears formed my eyes, and I said, I cannot believe I'm watching this on my TV. This was, I cannot believe it, because this was not possible growing up. This was not possible.
It wasn't possible in the first season of Game of Thrones.
It wasn't possible in the first season of Game of Thrones. Did we just capture Jaime? Where was the battle? Over there. It was not possible. And I'm not saying I need Star Wars to get to that. I'm just saying sometimes it's hard. You're like, but I had that. Why can't I have it here yet? But the feelings are different. They're smaller. They're more intimate. It's a lightsaber coming out. It is never more than 12. It is One Way Out. It is those things. It is Grogu putting a Rancor to sleep. Like those are they're just as big. It's just it's a little not uncanny valley, but for me, but just that little like I just know it, and I just have to be all right with this right now, and maybe one day we will, right? But I don't want to so focus on the long night moment not being present in Star Wars and then miss what's there. And that's the reconciliation for me of just like, hey, it is what it is right now. We'll see.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think, so much of it is about I think we talk about episode structure and screen time and budget, because those are the concrete things. And I think what Andrew is trying to get to, and feel free to let me know if I'm incorrect, Andrew, but Andrew is spending a lot of time saying, hey, I really love the television shows. I'm not saying the television shows are bad, but I'm saying, what is this ephemeral thing that is different? And I think for me, it's a couple things. One is just a generational thing that I want to entirely own, that it's generational, it's life perspective. There's no denying that, a good, bad, or otherwise, part of the power of Star Wars was scarcity. I grew up at a time where I needed to look at the storybooks because I couldn't watch it again. I watched the 4-hour Star Wars premieres on CBS with 800 ads in pan and scan and was in heaven. The scarcity of, I didn't get hooked into the EU, so I needed to wait for the movies. And a part of that became like, for me, I processed the television shows a little bit different because I grew up in a scarcity mindset. While I still get like really excited and I wish I could watch Andor season 2 now, I'm still anxious, I'm still hungry, but it isn't that same utter scarcity of give me anything. Like, I don't like Bendham's, but I was still excited to see him on the toy aisle because I was desperate for anything Star Wars. There was those PSAs in the 70s and 80s. There was I don't even remember what the PSAs were about, but it's just R2 and 3PO in the Death Star control room. It's like, this is like,
Yep.
It's not good or bad or otherwise, but it's just true. And I think for me, a part of what is different is all these television shows, the sheer volume of lightsabers I get to see ignited. And it's like, it's a Tuesday, I saw a lightsaber.
Yeah.
That it does have an impact on me. I don't think we're at too much. It's not like it has to go away to be good again.
No.
But I just have to be aware for myself of that was a part of the power of Star Wars, is pining for it.
Yeah. Yeah. God, even a box of C-3PO cereal made you think about it.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see it again.
Cheers had, that ongoing rivalry with the other bar.
Yeah.
That they would do with across seasons. And there was one week where the local, NBC affiliate, and this was probably late 80s, early 90s, they did a week they always played Cheers at 10:35 after the news in the Twin Cities. And they did 1 week where we're just doing episodes where it's Cheers versus Gary's Old Town Tavern. And the ad in the TV guide was Bar Wars. And it was like Sam's head, put on Luke's body, and like, I can't even remember like Norm popping out of an R2 and that was like, that's Star Wars. That's how much scarcity I felt like I was dealing with. So there's that part of it to me, that it's just different to have a lot of it. And then I think what you're maybe trying to get to is that movies and television are inherently different. And I want to try to enjoy the television shows for what they are. I don't want to see them as they're aspiring to movies and they're not making it, but rather what is their charm, And I think Star Wars, by its nature of being this huge whiz-bang adventure and being full of bizarre worlds and cool ships and interesting aliens, it requires a cinematic budget. But a lot of what we're talking about are the live action shows. So it also made me think about, what did people love so much about Clone Wars, Rebels, and even Bad Batch? And, there's all those interviews with Lucas talking about how he wanted the Clone Wars to be cinematic. And especially for the time that it was made, it's cinematic in the aspect ratio, literal aspect ratio, the quality of the music, the style of camera movements, the big vistas. So there's a lot, in my opinion, that's sort of visually cinematic. But what was successful about Clone Wars, Rebels, and Bad Batch is that they fully embraced the narrative power of television to spend a lot of quality time with the characters and tell a lot of different kinds of stories, and have an episode of the week, or have an arc, or have an episode that's a little bit more lighthearted, or an episode now we really see the dark side of Ezra, coming out. And I feel like the animation has done a really good job of, telling those stories. And I think that's what trying to remain cinematic, but also really lean into the traditional kind of arcs, timing, and value of what makes a television show good. How do you feel about looking at it through the animated show's lens?
I think it's a great way to bring it up because I think it's hit some of those moments. I'm thinking of Clone Wars season 7 in particular, coming up the stuff with Maul and Ahsoka. It's some of the Bad Batch stuff has hit the emotional notes that are big. That's why I know you're with me there, but it's like I always refer to the Outpost episode because it's just like that's a one-off artistic movie, darkly artistic movie that it does hit me in those ways. And I don't know why if it's just animation takes you out of your expectations for humans talking. I don't know if it's just a simple mind trick, a Jedi mind trick, if you will, but it could be.
I think it.
Could
Yeah,
be.
I mean, I think it's that they've all had more longer form seasons is one thing, and I think there isn't that direct compare contrast thing going on, and I think that the live action shows have been a mix. You got Andor, that's a longer season. You got Kenobi, which is it's a a one time event. That's a relatively short runtime. And you have Mando, which is a little bit more structurally television show like in that it has each episode is really well defined, and then it's got an arc through it. So I think for me, at the end of the day, I don't think I need the television shows or want the television shows. I want the quality to stay high. I want there to be great camera movement, great music, big vistas, all that stuff. But I think I will enjoy the television shows the more they try to be television shows and let movies be movies, because it is a different experience. Yeah. So I think that's what I think about it too. Of every time I feel myself pulling to be could this feel more like a movie? And no, I don't want it to. I want to get back to going to movies, and I want that to be a different experience than watching a television show.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's just setting your expectations, but just playing the mind games with yourself. That'll trick you. I don't know. It's the same thing. It's just served different.
Yeah. My final thought is I think this is not isolated to Star Wars, that movies and televisions have overlapped in a way that I think it's hard for audiences sometimes to go well, what do we want? They are awkwardly mixed now in terms of story structure, in terms of budget. If Netflix has a movie that they're not choosing to put in theaters, but they're spending a movie budget on, and it's got explosions and it's got stars and it looks and feels and it sounds like a movie, and it's just in your house. A huge part of the Star Wars movie experience has been going to the theater, and having that big theatrical experience. And we're in this moment of great confusion about what do we want out of a movie, because a lot of us are sick of negative experiences at the theater and just and we're fine with, hey, the Ryan Gosling movie that is clearly designed for the big screen only did okay at the box office, so it's available the next day at home. That is affecting how we're analyzing Star Wars too, because we're in a whole cultural time where what storytelling is for the big screen and what storytelling is for the big screen at home.
Yep. I have a pretty solid TV right now. It's pretty big. Different than what I would have watched, 1995 Star Wars, the TV show on. So
yeah. Final question for you on this topic, Ken, is how much are you missing the theatrical experience? Not of any sort of ephemeral, how it makes you feel, budget, story length, all that, height of stakes, but literally going to a theater to see Star Wars, and there's no other way to experience. You have to go to a theater. It has to be a social experience. How big of a factor is that?
It's a big factor, and I miss it, and I can't wait for it to come back again. And it was so much fun, and there's a little bit of nervousness. Who's going to be enjoying it around you, or who's not going to be enjoying it around you? Those kind of things. But that's kind of emerged in the digital media discussion age. But that feeling that screaming into my steering wheel as I'm driving The Force Awakens, I got to see new Star Wars, being there, or even Rise of Skywalker, Solo, all those things, it's hard to replace that. And I just can't wait for it to be back. We waited before. I'll keep waiting again.
Yep. No, and I'm very excited for Mandalorian and Grogu, because I think it has been a wait, and I think there will be that explosion. And I do think that theaters need to up their game. I think they've gotten very expensive, and I think they need projectionists and sound people on hand to make sure it's a better experience than you can get at home. I love it when any theater has a human who introduces the movies, particularly if they're good at it. It kind of whips the crowd up. You're here for a special experience. I would love it if AMC started kicking people out for using their phones. I'm sorry. It's my perhaps controversial opinion, but it's like, let's get. I saw a talk from Samuel L. Jackson at a screening of a film in the Dome at ArcLight, and he was talking about the magic of the big dark room. Like, it's got to be a big dark room. It's got to stay dark. Like,
It's it turns it's part of the process. It's part of the thing too. And I don't want to sound like it's just those kids. It's not. I have someone I know, an acquaintance in the comedy world, released a video that went pretty viral. I won't even say it about, but it's about doing something in a movie this past weekend or this past week. And I didn't know it was them at first. And I was like, who are these a-holes doing? They're filming this entire sketch. And then I was like, I know that guy. He's really nice and funny. Like, why is he doing that? You know, at our Phantom Menace screening, there was some younger folks in front. There was a family in front of us, but there was like maybe a late teens, and they kept putting their hoodie over to use their phone, so they were acknowledging this could affect other people. But I could see it. The light was shining right at me every time they did it, and through all of out Phantom Menace, the whole time they just were with the hoodie over it, and it's just like, that's part of it. That's part when you have these discussions. Why aren't people going to the movies? That's part of it.
Yeah,
that's part of it.
It is part of it. So I think, just to wrap up this great question from Andrew, I do think the general confusion about the theatrical film experience versus seeing it at home, no phones unless it's yours, pee in whenever you want, cheap popcorn, all that makes a difference in the way that we process it all. And we're just kind of in this time where creatively people are figuring out what is the true difference. But for me, I love the television shows, and I try to love them as television shows and not need them to be the same experience for movies. And that's just making me more hungry for the true big film experience with Mandalorian and Grogu. Yeah,
absolutely. Can't wait.
All right. That is our news and cues for this week. If you want to let us know what you think on social media or on our YouTube comments, please let us know, and please be polite. We've said some extremely strong opinions about phones in movie theaters. So maybe we've set off just a firestorm. I don't know. But that's it. Ken, you want to let people know where they can find us?
You can find us on social media at ForceCenter Pod. We're on Facebook at ForceCenter Podcast, Instagram, YouTube as well. Subscribe over here, like we said up top. Help us reach our goals and make our dreams come true. You can get merch at tpublic.com/user/ForceCenter. Support us directly at patreon.com/ForceCenter. Follow me at Cadnapsock. On my website, I have information from upcoming comedy shows, including a big one locally, June 30th. If you can make it out, buy tickets. It's going to sell out. It's going to be a fun show. More on the way, hopefully. Joseph, where can they find and follow you?
Yeah, you can find me on all the social media at Joseph Scrimshaw is my handle, pretty much everywhere. If you want to find out more about where some of the short films I've been working on will be playing, you can visit my website, josephscrimshaw.com. That also has a big link to the weekly blog I'm doing called Finish Your Monsters. All that stuff on my website, josephscrimshaw.com. That is it. The news has been broken.